Hi everyone, Miss Debbie here with three stories today from Under the Sea. Our first book is Storm Boy by Paul Owen Lewis. This takes place on the northwest coast of our country. And here you can see a stormy sea and look at the fins. What kind of whales do you think they are? If you said killer whales, you're right. This is one of my favorite stories in the world, and this is published by Beyond Words Publishing. It's an old book, can't really buy it anymore. A chief's son went fishing alone. And a terrible storm arose, and there his boat and his oar and he are plunged into the water, the deep water. He soon found himself washed ashore under a strange sky he had never seen before. There was a village there. The houses, the canoes, and even the people were very large. So look at the sky. Imagine if you were underwater looking up toward the sky, and you might see little fishes and the light of the sun shining into the green waters. And here's the boy, and look how big everything is compared to him. I am a chief's son, and I am lost. A storm has brought me to you, said the boy. We know this. You are welcome, son of a chief from above, said one who appeared like a chief himself. And together they entered the largest house of all. Inside, the house was crowded with finely dressed people enjoying a feast. They gave him a blanket to wear and a fish to eat, but the fish was not cut up or cooked. Strange, too, on the walls all around were what looked like killer whales. After they finished eating, the chief said to the others, "Let us sing a welcome song and invite our guests to join in the dance of our people." You are welcome, son of a chief from above, they sang. And there looks like killer whales are hanging on the walls, and they're playing their drums. And where's the boy? There's the chief singing. Oh, there's the boy. He looks so little. The boy and his hosts began to dance around the fire together to the steady beat of the drums. He matched them step for step, and the chief smiled when he saw that the boy had so quickly learned their dance. In return, the boy offered to teach the songs and dances of his own people. The chief was delighted and now followed the boy's lead. The celebration went on in this way for many long hours, the boy and his new friends each learning from the other. But though the boy was enjoying himself, he began to think more and more of home with each song he sang. He missed his father and mother and wondered if he would ever find his way back to them again. And here he is, sitting next to the chief, a little sadly. The chief is happy and proud. There's the whale skins. Suddenly, the drumming and dancing stopped. The chief turned to him and said, "We are glad that the storm has brought you to our village, but now you are thinking of your own." "When you wish to return," he continued, "grip my staff tightly and stand behind me. Close your eyes and think of your own home, wishing to be there only." The boy did as he was told. He took the staff and stepped behind the chief. Closing his eyes, he pictured his father and mother, his house, and the people of his village. As he did, the boy felt a great surge beneath him, as if he were being carried upward at greater and greater speed. He kept his eyes closed and held on tight. He's holding on to the fin of the killer whale. The motion stopped and the boy opened his eyes. There he was, lying on the beach in front of his very own village. "My son," cried his mother, "where have you been? We thought you were lost in a storm a year ago." "I was lost in a storm, but it was only yesterday," exclaimed the boy. But a year's time had indeed passed since he had disappeared in the storm. That night, the whole village celebrated his return and marveled at the boy as he danced with the staff and told of the large and mysterious people under the great sky. I love this book. It's such a hauntingly beautiful myth. The end. All right, Storm Boy. All righty. This one is called The Boy and the Whale by Mordecai Gerstein. Do you like whales? Some of my students like whales. Almost everybody loves whales. This is published by Roaring Brook Press. Here is the story the boy tells in his own words. "Every day I love to watch the sunrise out of the sea. One morning I saw something in the water, something big. "That's a whale out there," said Papa. "It looks dead." We jumped into our panga for a closer look. Panga looks like a little fishing boat. "Oh no," yelled Papa. He cursed the whale with words I'd never heard him say. "It's tangled in our net, our only net. I hope we can save it." "Save the whale, Papa?" "No, my son, save our net. The whale is dead." We dived into the water. And there's the whale wrapped up in the fishing net. These stories are all too true. I had never been so close to an animal so huge. Wrapped by the net in a hopeless tangle, the whale must have died, unable to move. I had been tangled in a net once too. I almost drowned, and Papa saved me. See, whales have to breathe air. They're mammals like we are. They don't breathe underwater. The whale's closed eye was as big as my head. And then it blinked. And I had to breathe, so I swam to the top. "So did the whale." "Papa," I gasped, "the whale's alive." Not just barely, said Papa, but our net is ruined. We have no money for a new one. He turned the boat toward the shore. Maybe, he said, we can try to fix my uncle's old net and borrow it. But what about the whale? I said. The whale, said Papa. Maybe we should free it, I said. Do you know, said Papa, how difficult and dangerous that would be? But it might live. It destroyed our net, said Papa. How will we live? They're driving away from the whale. I'm going to see my uncle. Forget the whale and don't do anything foolish. Yes, Papa, I said. I looked back out to the whale. I remembered being caught in the net, feeling helpless and the awful fear. What does the whale feel? It's so big. I couldn't free it myself. If I tried, Papa would be very angry. I stood there a long while. And then I jumped into the panga and headed for the whale. I had to try. I took my fishing knife, hoped the whale wouldn't slap me with his tail, and dived in. I began to cut away the tough plastic netting. There was so much of it, maybe Papa was right. I dived and cut and dived again. If only I didn't have to. Breathe! Look at the whale's breathing too. He's spouting. Right? When you swim underwater, you got to come up and take a breath. I was getting tired. How much longer, I wondered, could I do this? Whale, I thought, do you have a name? My name is Alberto. I'm so very sorry about the net, whale, but fishing is how we live. Do you know I'm trying my best to save you, but I don't know if I can. And when I looked again into the whale's eye, all I saw was my own reflection. Don't die, whale. I'm doing my best. But then the net began to drift loose. Out of the water, I worked at pulling the net away from the whale. It filled the boat, but there was still more. Then I saw the whale move a flipper, and all at once, the whale was free. It sped away from the boat, and I cheered, "Goodbye, whale, goodbye." It dived and disappeared. And there he is, looking out at the empty sea. It burst out of the water, leaped into the sky, spun around, crashed back into the sea, and out again. What a stunning sight. Very rare for us to see. The whale slapped its tail and leaped again and again, forward and backward, higher and higher, and on and on. Are you dancing to thank me, whale? Or just for the joy of being free? That looks like a great blue whale. I watched the whale until it vanished into the sea. Papa was watching too, waiting on the beach. I went to face him. You actually did it? He said. Yes, Papa. You disobeyed me? Yes, Papa, I said. It was incredibly foolish, said Papa, and it was very brave as well. Now come, my uncle's net needs fixing. Yes, Papa, I said. The end. That book has a happy ending. Whew. We like happy endings. Every Every day, every week, and find stories of humans rescuing animals. It's just wonderful. Our last book tonight is The Boy Who Lived with the Seals by Rafe Martin and illustrated by David Shannon. You know what seals sound like, right? Published by G.P. Putnam's Sons. This is a longer story. Once the people were traveling on their spring migration and had camped along the shores of the great river. One of the men was down by the river, working on his canoe. His little son, a boy of maybe 5 or 6 years, was there with him, playing in the water, tossing pebbles and splashing by the shore. As the man worked, the boy grew tired. After a time, he wandered off along the path that led back to the camp. And here is the father, and there's the boy playing by the water. Clean, clear water. The sun began to sink, the shadows grew longer, and the man too headed back to his people. But when he reached the camp, he discovered that his son was not there. The parents called and called, but there was no answer. The whole tribe began searching. They looked through the bushes by the river's edge, among the great trees of the forest, and along the foothills of the mountains, but there were no traces of the boy. The elders said that the boy must have been carried off by a wild animal, wolf or bear or mountain lion. The others sadly loaded up their canoes and set off once more on their journey to the spring camp. They couldn't find the boy, so they kept on going. But the mother and father wouldn't leave. They stayed on for 3 more weeks, searching for their boy. It was dangerous for them to stay all alone like that, in a place not their own. But after 3 weeks, they too came to accept that their boy was indeed gone. So with heavy hearts, they at last loaded up their canoe and paddled off, following their people. Yet the parents never forgot their boy. They often remembered how he loved to play in the shallows of the river, how he could always be soothed by the sound of waves splashing. One spring, when the people were again traveling, they met another tribe and they camped together. One night, an old woman of the other tribe told an amazing story. There is an island, she said, near where the river empties into the sea. The seals love that island. When the sun is high, they haul themselves out on the rocks and lie there, drying their fur in the warm sun. And with those seals, there is a boy. When the mother and father heard this, their eyes opened wide. Their hearts began to beat with joy, and they were sure it was their boy. Gathering some of the young men, they set off in their canoes until they came to that island. They hid themselves in the bushes along the shore and watched. Sure enough, as the sun went up higher, the seals appeared. Their heads dotted the water as they rode the swells off the rocky shore. Then they clambered onto the rocks, shook the water from their wet fur, and lay contentedly basking and barking in the warm sun. Last to come out of the water was a boy, their boy. Some of the young men slipped into the water and swam quietly out to the island. As they took hold of the boy, he began to cry out. Covering his mouth, they brought him back across the river to his parents and his people. And here they're grabbing him in the dark. But he was strange. He wouldn't talk, but only grunted and barked like a seal. He wouldn't walk, but only crawled on the ground. And he wouldn't eat the food that people eat. He only wanted raw fish, seaweed, and clams, like a seal. Patiently, his father taught him to walk again. His mother cooked the foods he had once loved and showed him again how to eat as a human being. Together, his parents once more taught him the words and stories of his people. In time, the boy was almost as he had been before. But not everything was quite the same. Child though he was, the boy now began to make canoes and paddles for his people. Each was carved and painted with designs of the sea and the sea's creatures. His people had never seen such beautiful things. He began to make bows and arrows too. His bows were the strongest, and his arrows flew farthest and straightest. But he never made them in the village. Always he would take his knives, branches, and tools down to the river where he would work alone. Many nights the boy's father would have to come to get him from a perch where he sat overlooking the water. Sometimes it seemed to the father that he heard splashes in the darkness, and several times when the moon was bright, he thought he saw sleek round heads disappearing into the water. Look at those beautiful creations he made and carved. And yes, have you seen seals in the waters? They're just, their heads bob up there. One night, when the people had built their fires, a faraway look came into the boy's eyes. Then he told them of his life under the sea with the seals. He said that the seals travel beneath the sea like the people travel on land. He said that they build fires at night under the sea and tell stories. Only the stories the seals tell, he said, are of the things that happened long ago when the earth was new, and of the things that are yet to happen far into the future. And there's the boy listening to the stories. His people listened. They felt the wonder of his tales, but they also felt the deep sea moving in his words, and it made them uneasy. So they sat apart, staying distant from him. Only his parents dared come close. They touched his face and called his name to remind him of where he now was. They tried to comfort him. You have been gone a long while, they said, but you will see. This is your place. These are your people. And you could see the people in the background just looking over their shoulders, and his parents trying to bring back their boy. But whenever his parents paddled across the river or out into the sea, the boy would hear the seals calling and would want to jump into the water and swim away with them. So his parents tied a deer hide to cover the boy, hoping he wouldn't see the seals, hoping he wouldn't hear them. And to distract him, they placed bowls of his favorite foods, pieces of fine-grained wood, and carving tools beside him under the hide. And there he is under the hide, and the seals are in the water. One day, they were paddling across the great river near where it emptied into the sea. Once again, the seals appeared and began calling, and the boy began struggling to be free. His parents paddled faster and faster, but it was no use. With a cry, the boy tore a corner of the deer hide free, stood up, and dove over the side down into the water. Far out where the river emptied into the sea, he reappeared again. Waving his hands over his head, he called out, "Farewell, my parents. Do not grieve. I have another home under the sea, and I'm going there." Then he dove down, 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 down into the green sea. His parents quickly paddled to the spot, but it was too late. He was already gone. They placed his carving tools in a box and let it sink under the water. "Farewell," they said. "Remember us. We shall never forget you." How sad, right? The following year, when his parents and people traveled to the spring camp, a beautifully carved canoe and paddle were waiting on the shore. In the canoe was the box in which the parents had placed the boys' carving tools. After that, each spring, a new canoe and paddle were always waiting. And each year they were more beautifully made, more wonderfully painted and carved. And it eased the pain of missing him just a bit. For paddling those canoes, the parents and all the people could feel the joy of that boy who went to live with the seals. What a beautiful boat that is. But how sad for the parents to miss their boy. The end. I love these stories. Well, thank you for joining me this day and hearing 3 stories that take place in the sea. I'll see you next time.